Okay, folks. I just saw a recent report which involves the CDC and a corporation. This corporation is Coca-Cola. Uh, now, it's as I understand it, Coca-Cola was bought out some years ago by Nestle. And Nestle has been in the news for having high concentrations of plastic particles in their water bottles that they sell. They've been reported on paying a couple $100 a year to basically take drinking water uh, 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 and bottling it and selling it back. So public drinking water, and then selling it back for thousands of percent markup to make a huge profit. So, but going back to the CDC and Coca-Cola, the report is that the CDC, one particular person at the CDC, worked hand in hand with Coca-Cola um, to give them tips and hints on how to market Coca-Cola's sugary drinks and even the diet sodas. I'm sure the Pepsi and all those others got uh, took cues from that. So basically, the CDC helped to uh, market Coca-Cola and take away uh, take away the stigma which had been starting to generate about sugary drinks, and as well as even aspartame with and other substitutes made by companies like Coca-Cola, which is actually really bad for you. Now, I'm gonna tell you that I do drink a lot of Diet Coke, but um, and part of that, I think it has to do with getting hooked, much like this. Um, but this isn't this isn't news. Well, it is news, but it's not. It shouldn't be shocking because back in the '80s, when the '80s or early, late '70s, when uh, HIV/AIDS started to pop up and then became a huge issue. This new exotic disease. It became a social consciousness, and it became a major money making thing. Well, there's a at the time the most one of the most renowned um, disease disease guys, a disease guy who's a doctor who studies disease and genetics and all that other stuff. He found some things that just didn't jive with what he. I mean, he's the expert, and there were things that just didn't go with what he knew and what he understood. And at first, he was hesitant, and so he was trying to. So he's and well, it really started to make no sense to him. So he started looking into it, and the guy that pushed it, the one that sat in, went in front of the Congress and did a congressional report. The one that spoke with the CDC and later on to European, and then to the World Health Organization and the UN, and so it became, he started seeing all this, and the sudden rise of a disease that was not ever even known about, which was, he was like, it it just popped up out of nowhere. And so he looked into it, and basically what he found was every one of the assumptions, and there were assumptions, very flawed assumptions, based on what was characteristically associated with heavy drug use and other so heavy drug use. And so these were symptoms and causes, cause and effect of heavy drug use for a very long period of time. And the fact that it was in the gay community, that particularly the male gay community, that this was showing more prevalently, is the fact that the gay community were heavily using drugs and not getting enough sleep, and so on and so forth. And so these are the sort of things that were attributed to the symptoms. And so he tried to call out about it, show the correlation, and unlike the people who were pushing it, which was the CDC, directly involved with the CDC, because the CDC actually had internal memos, and there was evidence of conversation between the guy that did all the media darling, who was a doctor, quote unquote doctor, who pushed this whole narrative, but how he was actually co-opted to push it. So yeah, we know that. We know about the opioid crisis and how the FDA was involved in it. We know about Coca-Cola now. We also know about Dow and DuPont and 3M, and we know about Monsanto. With so with the EPA. So this is just another example. And so, but to this day, HIV/AIDS, it's there. And now, I forgot one other thing. Many other people who actually ended up dying or being tested positive, or the potential for positive, was actually activated with the cure. And if that seems a little familiar for those of us who know about the opioid crisis, with the Sackler family and Purdue Pharma, and how they produced the opioid crisis and the people that got hooked on it, and then they were going to and they were marketing the drug to help those who were hooked. Uh, well, that's exactly what this whole HIV/AIDS thing. It became a massive money making thing, and the CDC directly got money for for research grant through through pharmaceutical and taxpayer donation, uh, meaning that the government funneled money into the CDC for research. Of course, uh, there was inference that the research was actually for other things and not HIV/AIDS. So, and then there were, of course, the actual public donations. So it was a massive money making thing, and it became a social consciousness, and it also directly helped the gay community. Uh, so and anyways, you can find it. I don't remember the video title, but it's on YouTube, and I don't know I don't know if you'll be able to find it. Sometimes there are certain, as we know, there are certain things that people will repost, and it'll get through, and otherwise it's basically suppressed material. Um, but look it up on YouTube and see if you can find out about it. Much like the Canadian Broadcast Corporation's report on 9/11 back when 9/11 was had just really just happened, and it was shortly after the Canadian Broadcast Corporation brought out many of the many of the things that have the 9/11 conspiracy. Uh, and that was something that popped up. But actually, what's funny is I went looking for it again and I couldn't find it, and I had it in my uh, in my archives under global fraud, and you can't find it there. At least I couldn't find it there recently. So there you have it, and also that video was on my that other video with the CDC and HIV/AIDS. Yeah, that was in my YouTube video archive. But I can't find it there either. So um, that there is, and I can't understand how people cannot see the connection, and how the system is all about money. It's all about gaining power, and it's all about uh, turning everybody into guinea pigs and commodities, and walking piggy banks. All right.